Welcome to Batchademia, a podcast so educational two professors could be hosting it. Hi, I'm Dr. Danielle Dick-McGue, and joining me is Dr. Bill Henneman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Batchademia. Thanks for pausing the gold medal handball match that you were watching before this to, hang out with us for a little bit. Pause for laughter. Good. This week we have Dr. Melissa Dobosh as our guest, and she is on her second time on the show. So she's a return cast member now. She's an associate professor in communication and media, specializes in how groups and teams work together, as well as organizational relationships. What do you have to tell us, Melissa?
I'm really excited to be here and be back and talk about what happened with the Men Tell All and kind of bring in kind of a group perspective.
Nice.
Woohoo.
Yeah.
Danielle, we should just address the elephant in the room. What are you wearing?
Oh, so this gym here is something that I made with Tie-Dye Sue. Shout out to Tie-Dye Sue. Thank you for the wonderful time. And thank you to Bill and Elaine. They invited folks over to do a tie-dye event last Saturday. And my husband noticed that I was bringing a cardigan. Y'all, it was like 95 and super hot. And he's like, really, what are you doing bringing a cardigan? I'm like, I just in case. And it's what I call my sleeping cardigan. Y'all, this thing has holes. Like, this is not supposed to be frayed. I don't know if you can see the side of it's all frayed. For those of you that are watching, there's holes all over in it. Like, I don't know there's pockets in this, but there's so many holes around the pockets. I don't really know how they're like not falling out. So we decided to go ahead and tie-dye it. So it's making its debut on the podcast today.
And Sue is my mother-in-law, Elaine's mom, and she loves to tie-dye. So
it's amazing.
And Danielle is only second in the world in her love of cardigans to Taylor Swift.
I might rival you.
Really?
Have a fair amount. We went to a weekend up north where it's like people wear the same clothes all weekend, like camping. And I was packing cardigans. I was going to pack like 3 cardigans, and my husband was like, "What the heck are you doing?" So I brought one.
Sleep in your cardigans.
You know, it just cardigans and pearls, man.
I love it. You do your pearls. I should say, from the tie-dye event, they were awesome and provided gloves for us. But then when we went home and took them out, I forgot gloves, and my hands were blue. Like, I looked like a Smurf for a good couple of days. And even now, like, my cuticles are still just dyed blue.
I was at the dentist today, and the dental tech was like, "What's all over your hands?" And I was like, "It's tie-dye."
It happens.
All right. Question of the week. Because the Olympics are on, and I'm a big Olympics fan, so this is taking up all of my time to watch the really esoteric sports right now that I could be watching, but I decided to hang out with you all. And I believe this question actually comes from Danielle's man friend, Ryan, originally. If you were going to work really hard and qualify for an Olympic at the next cycle, Winter or Summer Olympics, what do you think you could qualify in? So what are you like, I might be able to get good enough to qualify in this?
Nothing.
Well, that's not enough.
They're academics. Like, I don't have skills, like athletic skills.
What a punt by both of you two.
Oh,
Come
no.
on.
I mean, I've got some answers.
All right.
I've got answers, but I you know what? It's not about my talent, but I feel like I would be amazing on the skateboarding team.
Okay.
And I've never been on a skateboard, but my husband did go out and look at one for me at Walmart, almost bought it. But I feel like they are the cool people that I like in my heart. I guess I'm wearing cardigans and pearls, but I feel like I could be this edgy, like rad, like skateboarder, like the skateboarder mom. And then I could be there and be like, hey, wear a helmet, because that scares the crap out of me watching them without helmets. It like really makes me anxious. But I could be so cool with my helmet that they would then start to role model me. and it'd be great.
Absolutely.
I feel like the
Melissa,
first rule in this, sorry, I talked over you, Danielle. Go ahead.
for it. No.
I feel like the first rule in this game is that you never try the sport so that you keep that illusion that like you'd be really good at it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like any of those sports you would be horrible at, they take years to get good at. So the first rule is never try it.
So
Yeah.
Melissa, we need to talk about this because this isn't quite skateboarding, but I do want to create a scooter club at UNI, where we scoot and advise students on scooters. So it's just like a pipe dream that I have. Okay, so I'm kind of scrappy. I'm not, very coordinated or anything else. I think if there's any climbing events, maybe I could do it. At first I was like speed walking. I think I could do speed walking. But then I looked up people's time in speed walking and they like are doing like 6 minutes and 40-second miles. Y'all, that's not walking anymore. It's just like funny running. Like it's weirdly formed running. There's a lot of things I like to think that I could do though. Like, I don't know. I mean, I was a really good ice skater on my roller skates when I was a kid on my grandma's driveway. So like, I don't know. I'm like the least graceful person, but I can imagine myself flipping around.
I mean, I tried some gymnastics moves on my floor. It did not go well. Like the thing where they crouch down and they spin on one leg. I was like, I really want to be able to do that. And maybe it's a new goal. Fell over. My husband yelled at me. I have a bad knee. I could probably do softball.
Oh,
Softball.
Yeah.
nice.
What about you, Bill?
Well, so I did jujitsu. I used to compete in jujitsu and I tried a judo tournament once and I got beat in like 10 seconds because I thought, you throw them, you get back up. But if they throw you straight on your back, you're done. And so this guy just like threw me on the ground and I got up and I was like, all right, round 2. And they're like, no, bud, you're out of the tournament. So that's where the rule about never actually trying it came from because it'll crush your illusion.
Yeah.
I've always thought I would be really good in rowing because I'm not very big. The guy in the front, the coxswain, that like he does, I don't know what he does, but he apparently has to be tiny and able to tuck himself up in the front of the boat. I think I could do that. I'm pretty flexible. I could cut weight. I used to wrestle, so I can do that. And then I think it's just yelling at people. And I'm really good at that. Just talking with no sense of direction. So
Are there any climbing events, do you know? Because like I was we were visiting a park last night and I was doing some good climbing. I just, like I was impressive.
There was an experimental couple events at one point, and then I think they took them out. So like skateboarding's experimental this year.
It's awesome. It's these kids are like 13. They were wearing helmets, but like they're 13.
I need to watch it more because I enjoy these things, but I forget about the television.
Oh, this
except for The Bachelorette.
Yeah, and maybe we should get back to that, huh? Thanks for bringing us back. Okay, so the show started with some real heartburn. Michael tells the producer I need to start. Let me tell the story. Michael is on the phone with his son and kind of through this whole process, he's talking to his son. His son asks where he is, and Michael tells his son, "Oh, I'm on a work trip." And then his son says, "Do you not want to see me, Dad?" And that really breaks his heart, and it breaks the producer's heart. Like Michael gets a hug from one of the producers. So what do we think about first kind of the therapeutic lying to his son?
I want to hear your extra credit on this before I offer up my opinion, I think.
Melissa, you got anything to add before I just jump right into professoring?
No, I definitely want to hear it. I just think it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but I don't know what he could have said otherwise. So yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
So I looked up the research and I'm going to start off by saying, so my degree's in human development and family studies, and sometimes I teach parenting courses. However, it's not my area of interest or research. So I'm kind of just parroting the research here. But probably every parent lies to their child. I couldn't find a statistic, but it's kind of one of those, if you say you don't lie to your child, you're probably lying. So I'd say it's close to 100%. And whenever students, we talk about this sometimes in class, is it okay to lie to your parents, or is it okay to lie to your children? And I always remind them that, like most things in social science, there's no real like yes or no. And some of that's because there's different types of lies you would tell to your child, right? So you could have like a lie of omission, which is not telling them something, to protect them, but you're not actively lying. Lies to protect their development. So Michael probably falls into that category. You feel like maybe they're not developmentally ready to understand it, so you tell a lie. There's lies around tradition. So like Santa Claus, that Santa Claus is real. Hopefully no one's listening and is like, oh shit, Santa's not real. There's lies to control behavior. So telling a kid they'll call the police if they don't behave, something like that. And then there's malicious lies. And so you see that with a lot of children, people who have kind of the cycle of abuse, lies that are just meant to hurt a child. And so generally, when we talk about lying, you should limit it, lying to kids, because it leads to trust issues, and it teaches them that it's okay. Even if you tell your child not to lie, at some point, they're going to get old enough to figure out that you lied to them. So I have a fun little example. Sorry, Mom, you're getting put on blast here. But I remember one time when I was a kid, I really wanted popcorn. And I think my mom just didn't want to make popcorn, but she told me she was so tired she couldn't carry the popcorn bowl. And because I'm a problem solver, I said, well, I'll carry the popcorn bowl. And my mom is tiny, but she's not so small that she couldn't carry the popcorn bowl. And she's like, well, I can't carry the pan. And I was like, I'll do that too. And she's like, I wouldn't be able to lift the pan. I'm like, well, I'll do that too. And she's like, you'll burn yourself. We're not having popcorn, right? And so there was a point one day where I was thinking about that, and I was like, damn it, that was a lie. I was lied to. It didn't ruin my psyche, right? And so a lot of lies like that, they're probably not going to hurt a child. So lies to protect a child's development, white lies, they tend to have less impact. What we do know is the more that it is done, the more likely a child is to be a habitual liar when they become an adult. And there's some less savory social outcomes. What I would point out is that we've all been lied to, and most of us aren't sociopaths. So we turned out fine, right? So I don't think parents should be beating themselves up like, oh my God, this is horrible. The lies that really affect children, though, are those lies to control behavior instead of addressing the behavior. So, if you don't do this, you're going to, we'll take your dog away if you're never going to do that, or something like that. And then the malicious lies. So lies that are abusive, things like that, are the ones that really create lots of lying in adulthood, and then really bad social outcomes. So like incarceration, things like that. So kind of the takeaway from it is try not to lie to your kid, but also, and you all are parents, so you understand, sometimes you just got to tell them that you don't have any ice cream in the refrigerator when you have it, because you're going to eat it when they go to bed and you don't want to share it. And I feel like some of that is for a parent's mental health, and no one's going to, the child's not going to be woefully hurt by that. So as far as Michael's lie, I don't know. I feel like he was trying to be a good parent. But I also feel like, there's probably other ways to go about it, but who am I to judge?
I was going to say, like, I think that my takeaway from that was Michael's in a pickle. Like, that's a tough thing to figure out. How are you going to navigate that with your child, and especially given his kid's age seems pretty young still, like, are you going to say, oh, well, I'm on a TV show? Then you have questions like, even if you just left it at that, you're going to get questions like, well, what TV show? Are you an actor now? I thought you were a teacher. Like, I just think that, like, it's going to come with all of these follow-up questions. And like, you certainly aren't going to go like, oh, I'm, seeking love and I might be coming home with your new mommy, like, and so I guess, like, I don't know if he made the right decision or the wrong decision, but I do know that it would be a tough place to be. And so I guess, like, I'm hesitant to like throw a whole lot of like shade at him regardless, because I don't really know what I would do if I were in that situation.
I don't know. I don't think I would have gone on The Bachelorette.
So that's Ryan and I had this
Prevention is the first
conversation.
step. An ounce of prevention.
And I
So like, yeah. So like Ryan brought that up to me. He, we were talking and he was like,
First
I
off,
just kinda
Ryan
question-
is a secret Bachelorette fan. He has jumped the shark. The man
Yeah.
can tell me he doesn't like it, but he's in.
He is. And so, yeah, Melissa, tell me more. Cause I think that you and Ryan might be on the same page here, but I had some speculation.
And I think Michael is like just a gem, right? Like I think he seems like a legitimately like really great guy. And I think that finding love again and some of the conversations him and Katie have had this season are really lovely. But I was thinking, my husband has a different opinion. He would be on The Bachelorette so fast if I died. But he's like, but our kids are older. I was just thinking his son's like 5 and lost his mom 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I guess my thought was that maybe it's just this child's already been through something where he's lost a parent. I mean, I think in a divorce, and again, I don't know the research on divorce, but like at least if you still have another, I don't know, it's just really hard. Then again, I don't begrudge someone wanting to find love, right? Again, I think it's different if you still have your parents there, maybe not living together versus one has died and then your parent goes off for 6. Because I was thinking that I have trouble leaving my kids for like 1 week.
Yeah.
My husband took my kids away for a week. I couldn't go and it was gutting. So I can't imagine 6 weeks for filming.
I would be really curious to hear his story as to like how he ended up on the show. Cause so this is like my speculation is that he's like struggled with getting back in the dating field. And so like his friends or his family, like they applied for him, like, or he did it as like, not really thinking that it'd be real. And then you get accepted. And I'm like a yes person. So I'd be like, this is wild, but I'll do it because I'm only going to be there for like a week. And then they're going to send me home. And so like, I think that like, and then all of a sudden maybe you get there and you're like, oh no, like, I think I need to see where this goes. So like, I just kind of like, I've created all this alternative scenarios so that I can like Michael's decision to do this.
No, and I'll tell you, I did some research. I was like, why'd you go on this show? But it seems like he was heavily like, and I don't know, but I read some things that like he was heavily recruited by the producers to come on the show.
Interesting.
Now, whether that's true, I was like doing like late night, like after a glass of wine research on the web. So like, who knows? But I mean, I think that he's someone who wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to go be on The Bachelorette. Like he seems like a legitimate, and maybe it's an adventure. It's a way to get, maybe, I haven't been on the dating apps. Like maybe it's tough out there. I don't know.
Do you think, here's another thing, heavily recruited, does that mean like, does that come with some extra perks? Like, is he like, why am I dropping his name? The really like Bennett. Is he like, like Bennett had his own room? Remember? Like we were like, everybody else is like in this like in their little rooms, and then like Bennett has his own suite. Like,
yes.
Like, did he get some extra perks? Like, I'm curious.
I feel like when there used to be parents who would go on the show, they weren't even like able to like talk to their kids. Maybe his extra perk was being able to FaceTime every day with his kid.
I have a feeling that they did. They just didn't show it. I think with him, this was like the producers were like, yeah, let's get this going right now, and then it became like a great story. I agree with Danielle. I don't think he thought he was going to be on for a while. And here's my reasoning. He had no beard when he started. And by the end, like it was clear he hadn't shaved. And so I get this because like on vacation, I'm like, I'm not even bringing a razor. Like it's whatever. And I feel like that's exactly what he did. And then he's like, damn, I'm still here. So
he could probably send the producers out to buy him a razor.
Well, see, but I think he was like, well, I'm going to be gone tomorrow. The other thing I would say is that, and Danielle, you kind of talked about this, but from like a parenting standpoint. So originally he says, I'm going for work, and maybe he thinks I'm going to be gone for a week. But then once that happens, when you FaceTime your kid, you can't then be like, well, I'm actually like, then he's probably, he's doing the right thing. Because what you don't want to do is be like, I'm actually on a date, kid. See you later. And then like your in-laws got to explain this to him, so I feel like you put yourself in a corner and then you got to like stay with it until you can get home. So
I was thinking about what I was like, instead of being like, I am on a work trip, what if you just said, I am taking care of business? So
Yeah.
I feel like if it was just like, I'm taking care of business, that's more vague than like a work trip. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I think that kids, like, so I have a 5-year-old, and I do feel like he understands that I have to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think that that's like a concept, but I also do think that I could say I'm taking care of business, and like that would probably like cover it. You know, my heart like broke for him because so I kind of have this theory that I think he knew that he wasn't gonna, either he wasn't as into Katie, he was unsure about things, or he was unsure about how she felt about him, because it would just break your heart to hear your kids say that. But I was also like, you already spent how many weeks away from your kid,
Yeah.
and you only have a few weeks left. Like, in some ways, it's like, have you sort of rendered the sacrifice you have made invalid by like choosing to step away now? And so I feel like he had to have some sort of other, it wasn't just about his son. I think it had to do something with his and Katie's relationship too.
I thought that too. So then the question that comes up for me is, what if he's the bachelor? Right? Because I guarantee they have offered it to him, because I have yet to see anyone be like, Michael's not a good guy.
No.
And I feel like there are plenty of women out there who would like wife him up real quick, husband him up, and like would be happy to share a life with him and his child. So if he were to say yes, where does that leave him as far as like being honest, being not? That was a conversation in our watching pod.
That would be a long time away from his kiddo too. I wonder if the only way he'd do that is if there was some other arrangement for like where filming took place and things like that. I've heard some rumors, and I don't, or maybe it's just like fans being hopeful, but that there was going to be 2 bachelors back to back. Now, just like they did 2 bachelorettes, and that it would be Michael and Andrew.
I love Andrew. But here, something I was thinking about though is I think like Claire got to bring her dogs on her season, so like why can't Michael just bring his kid and bring a parent? And I guess my thought is if you're trying to kind of diversify, right, and have, but I think it also means people who are older who maybe have children. Part of me is like, how can you make it so they can participate in the show without harming their children, or like I don't know. So I think I'd be great with like a like if there was a bachelor or a bachelorette who had a child and they're there on site with them. I think it probably gets harder when they're traveling. It's probably easier when they're all contained at one resort. But
Jason Mesnick,
yeah,
they did it in his hometown, and so he went back to his house every night, if I remember. So they've done it before, so it's not unheard of. So,
and I do.
They would just have to go to Ohio. It's like Jason was in Seattle in a houseboat, and it's like, we're going to Sandusky, Ohio.
It would be interesting. I do think like the decision then to when to introduce your kid to someone, like if they're with you, that kind of, they're more likely to maybe get a sneak peek of someone, and I think trying to decide when you introduce your kid, which is in real life, you have to make that decision too. And so I think that that's like a really interesting negotiation that parents on the show have to make too, that people that are child free don't. So this was clearly like the best part of the
right. And I don't know if I lied to myself or Danielle lied to myself or somebody else, but I thought this was hometowns. And so when they had the men on there, I was just mad. I was just not happy about anything for the rest of the night. I rage ate like a whole sleeve of Oreos. So I just want that to be known, that my attitude moving forward is not going to be great. So
is it our friend co-host Kim that loves the Men Tell All episodes?
No, because she was at our house, and I don't think she was very impressed. Yeah, she was like, what is this?
I just find like I'm here for love, unlike Bill. So like I just find that most of these end up with everyone like screaming over each other. I have to watch a bunch of reruns. Like I haven't forgot because I'm here with you. I've been watching this. And so I feel like there's such filler episodes. But
Unlike Bill and his dark black heart.
you have this
Um,
dark black heart that loves the fighting.
I love the fighting and the
Destruction.
breakups. I did, so I rewatched the episode, but I fast forwarded through everything that was useless. So I got home from the dentist at 10:10 and I was done with the episode by 11:40 or 10:45 this morning. So there is 35 minutes of worthy content in that show. So yes, it is filler.
Are you a fan of the Minto all, Melissa?
I think sometimes it can be interesting, but I think on the season, like I think the men kind of got out all they wanted to say, like during the season, right? Like I think sometimes if there's like hidden stuff going on, it can be interesting, but usually it's just, yeah, it's totally filler. But this is just boring because nobody said anything new, right? Because I think they did a pretty good job of telling each other how they felt about each other. You know, it was like pretty out there, I thought, throughout the season.
When you did realize that all of the drama this entire season has been really around one issue, and that is, are people's reasons for being here legitimate? Like every single set of drama seems to be around that same issue.
Yes. And since I am a hardworking podcast host, I went back and I have some questions around this very boring episode, and we're going to make it freaking interesting. Okay. So they started out with Cody. Apparently he posted he would be famous in 6 months on social media, which is ironic because when he showed up on camera, I was like, who's that guy again? I couldn't remember him. So he says that was taken out of context, and that there was a lot of bromance. But this is kind of the dark side. So one of the guys, I think it was Carl, stepped up and said, you guys are mean. You go on like a witch hunt when people get, you attack people. So what do you think about that? Was that like the dark side of the bromance, that they like go on a witch hunt? They like band together. They're mean bros, like mean girls, but mean bros.
So I think, in studying groups, right? Like I think there's always kind of the dark side of like relationships, the dark side of groups. And I think a lot about social influence, right? Which is a really a thing that we look at with groups, and the idea that, so I guess this is my extra credit, right? So social influence is where you have kind of pre-discussion preferences for how something will go, and then they differ from your post-discussion. And it's because of social influence. It's because you think a certain way about an issue or about a person, but you talk with others, and then how you feel about them afterwards is different. And what you see throughout the show filming is a lot of the guys talking about each other, together with other people, talking about Thomas, talking about Cody, talking about Carl. And people, what we know, right, is when social influence, that process occurs, people tend to minimize people who have a minority opinion tend to change it towards the majority. And we know that people will comply with the majority, right? They might change their mind completely, and they end up converging. And what ends up happening is the polarization effect, that people then start to have actually more extreme kind of final decisions or final preferences or final opinions than they would have had. So like something happens in that group discussion where maybe you didn't like Cody, right? But in talking to everybody else afterwards, you like hate Cody. And so I think there is something about the discussion that can make things more extreme, and it can go in a positive direction too, right? But in a negative direction. So I think there is something about like the dark side of the bromance, that in talking about someone that maybe on a scale of 1 to 10, you feel like as being, 10 being the most vile human ever, you're like, oh, this guy is like a 5. But after talking with everybody, you're like, no, they're clearly a 9. And I think what happens is that, well, not I think, what also happens is that people then tend to only talk about their shared information. Right? So you might have, if everyone's kind of sharing information about Carl being bad or Cody being there for the wrong reasons, everyone's going to share their information that coincides with that because it's shared. So it seems more legitimate, right? So you're like, oh, so you share your stories of him doing something that seemed bad. But what happens is you don't share the information that is unshared. So maybe you have some evidence that's really good and you don't share that in the group discussion. So I think that, yeah, group discussion has great power, but it can kind of also be used nefariously.
That's a good extra credit.
That is a great extra credit. I had a question. Like, sometimes I feel like we have them until all, and they get into these fights, and you can tell that like people really don't like each other. I like felt in this group that the arguments were contrived, right? That like you said, Melissa, that they like already had hashed this out. Nobody really cares about Cody anymore, right? Like, and so it like was this thing where I felt like they were expected to rehash these arguments that they'd already had, but like that most of them are just kind of over it. And that's why I think like later in the episode, you just see them getting along.
Right.
Right. And so there's like this shift where it was like, now's our time to fight. And then they were like, just like all seem to be buddy buddy. And I'm sure that they don't all like, there probably are people that like each other and don't like each other. But I just wondered how much of that it felt kind of contrived and scripted to me. I don't know.
I wonder maybe if Thomas had been there, would it have been different? But I think you're right. It comes back to that one. The only issue was like, are you here for the right reasons? And I mean, if you're there, like, I'm going to get some more Instagram follower. I mean, I don't know. It's not like they're killing puppies, like.
And it doesn't matter anymore because she didn't pick any of them. So I think like that's part of it too, is that argument doesn't even matter anymore because like they're all off the show.
The one thing I was surprised is that no one called out Aaron, because even there you could see him like he is just like driving this like, let's pick a guy and let's be mean to him and then it's like even in the group with the men tell all, there were several times where he's like, oh, I don't like him, I think blah 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 blah, and it's like he was really good at like orchestrating the mob and then watching it like go after the person. And no one seemed to like understand, like no one called him out on that, or at least they didn't air it, maybe.
I mean, it would say to me that he's someone who has a lot of influence. So whether people respect him, like him, so what he says, people then would, right? Like then that process, oh, Aaron doesn't like him. Well, let me tell you about something, that Carl said to me. And that's now we jump on it and we feed and we build. But yeah, I mean, it suggests that he has a lot, because he is like the pot stirrer, right? Yeah. But everyone.
Interesting.
So Melissa, would an example of that sort of being interrupted be the moment where actually Connor offered up some sass, right? So like this moment where they're
Hunter.
like talking about Hunter, and Connor's like, no, I was his roommate, he was falling in love, like I know, I heard him every night, and he sort of shut that down. So that was an example where he kind of went against the social influence in some ways to break in and say, hey, I do have this piece of evidence that you all don't, and it contradicts the narrative that we're telling.
So with like social influence, the hidden profile paradigm is that groups will make decisions or kind of converge on an opinion. When if they actually all shared all of their information, they would have come to a different decision, but instead they share what seems to be shared. And maybe if Aaron's really influential, they're going to share things that coincide with him. And so when Connor said that, it was an example, right, of what I teach my group comm students. It's why it's so important in a group to cultivate an environment where you can say the things that aren't shared, can say the things that go against, the importance of playing devil's advocate. Because my guess is that Connor wasn't the only person who could say something that was positive, right? And that once Connor said it, if that discussion had continued, I bet more people might have, according to theory, right, like might have started to say things as well. So,
and it may have happened, but you just don't see it. I mean, that's the other thing I have to constantly remind myself is like, that could have been a 4-hour recording and we see 32 minutes of it, and so, okay. So we kind of went by, Hunter.
Let's talk about Hunter.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about him after seeing that? Because I don't know. I mean,
Connor said he was in love, and I believe Connor. No, I don't know.
It's interesting because somebody else, I can't remember who, but somebody else went on their Instagram, were talking about what a great guy Hunter is. And that's not exactly how I felt watching it, but it seems like several of the guys publicly have sort of like defended him since then. I want to talk about this like distinction between falling in love and being in love, because I've read some different arguments. Like some people are like, that's BS. This is like this distinction that we make for like the narrative of the Bachelor shows, right? So that we can say like, this is what phase they're in on the Bachelor, but like in real life, you wouldn't be like, oh, I remember when I met Ryan, and this is when I realized I was falling in love, and this is when I knew I was in love. That like we wouldn't in real life engage in those distinctions. And I'm not sure I agree. Like I kind of find them to be helpful distinctions. Like, what do you all think?
I am listening. I'm looking up in my notes about love. I was trying to see if there was some like a spectrum of love.
Or
And I'm
where would
not,
it fall on, like, maybe either of you know this. I haven't like learned this in like, oh, quite a few years, but like Duck's like stages of relationships, right? Like, is there like, would there be in research around like the stages of a relationship something that would coincide with like, I think I'm falling in love versus like, I know I am in love now?
I don't know about, and you can interject Bill when you have info. 'Cause I know about some of the friendship literature, like, you know, studying
Yeah.
like friendships that develop in workplaces. And it's definitely very much a transition, right? It's I don't know if there's like these hardcore like we're work best friends or we're just work friends, right? It's that relationships are transitions and there's transition points. So I mean, it would seem to me that like in the development of a romantic relationship, it's not just like there might be maybe like points, right? Or there's like a big shift, but I think it's a transition, right? It's a process. I
so
don't
they
know.
have what's called the triangular theory of love. And it
Ooh.
kind of has this whole where they talk about intimacy, passion, and commitment.
I remember learning about that in
Yeah,
in
and
World
so if you
Prom
think
as a
if you think
freshman.
about it like an amoeba, and it's like at any point one is kind of pushing to one side, one's kind of
Mhm.
sucking back in. And so I think maybe when they talk about I'm falling in love, maybe you have the passion and you're starting to develop the intimacy. And then when somebody says I am in love, it's when you get that commitment. But the thing to remember is that just because you are in love doesn't mean you're going to be out of love later on, right? And so I think that's something that doesn't get talked about on the show, is that it's like I'm in love, and it's like you could like they cheat on you or they make you go bankrupt, you might be out of love at some point, right? You realize they don't do house chores, things like that. Yeah, so
I think I have an idea. I'm gonna like throw
ooh,
something out here. I've got a like a theory, a hypothesis. I don't
this is
know.
how
I don't.
science works, folks. You're hearing science in real time.
You all, I do not do any sort of research that uses a word like hypothesis. But what if when you are falling in love, you can say that that's about your feelings, but when you say that you're in love, it's like a co-creation, right? And what I mean by that is that part of what's dependent here is like it's not just about how you feel, but it's whether or not you trust that the other person maybe returns those feelings. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So like I think that part of the reason that they say that they're falling in love a lot on the show but won't say I love you is because you don't always know where the other person, like especially the lead, stands, because they tend to be a little bit more like tight-lipped about their feelings. And so I think that some of it is about like trust and like whether or not you believe that it's reciprocated, that like it's face saving to say I'm falling in love rather than I am in love. If things don't work out, you can go, oh well, I was falling but I wasn't there yet. Like, and you know, I don't know. And then it kind of upholds this like romance lit like myth, what you were kind of saying, Bill, that like once you're in love forever, right?
Right.
So you're gonna save that for the person, right? Which, you know, just isn't exactly how things work, but I don't know. That's just like my little like ponderings for the moment.
I feel like we're describing the same thing and just using different terms. So I think of that as like commitment. Once you've made that commitment to the person And some of that commitment is you saying, are they committed back to me? But there are relationships where one person is very committed and they don't know about the other person's level of commitment.
Well, and it's hard. If I recall, I remember learning about this theory when I was a freshman in college.
Ooh.
The love, like the theory, I had a professor who taught it. And I recall like it's the idea that you can have like commitment and intimacy with someone, and that's like a friendship love, right? And so then you can have like, you wanted like the trifecta in some way, right? Because that was your consummate, all encompassing love. I even think about this idea of like love versus in love, right? Like we're talking about being in love, but I have love for, like, I think having love for, being in love with, I love, like it's all these terms that are kind of, we all have kind of different, I think, ways that we think about it. And that's going to cause conflict on The Bachelorette, right? Because they're using them in different ways that they've made sense in terms of how they work for them.
If
But
you
that's where the
study
conflict-
this, like looking at discussions on like Twitter and stuff about this distinction would be a fascinating like content analysis. Because it's really interesting to see people arguing it out right now.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, and it's a good application of why sometimes I think people are like, academics don't know anything. They're just in their white tower. And it's what Danielle is saying, which is like, yeah, I can sit here and be like, look it, we've got Sternberg's and you need to use these things. But does it really matter in real life when people are arguing it out in Twitter, or in their group of friends? And so I think that's one place where if people are listening and like, what do academics do? Sometimes I think it's our job to bridge that gap. And so how can we apply what people are arguing over and apply what we know from science and from content analysis? And then, so
very cool.
This has been the most highbrow discussion we've had in a while.
The Men Tell All might have been a dud, but this episode of Bachelorania is not.
Yes. So then Connor comes on. Let's bring the intelligence down a bit here. And is concerned if he's a bad kisser. And he said that he's talked to some people because he's worried he's not, his exes. And they said, no, sometimes people are just not good kissers together. First off, I think that is your ex telling you are a bad kisser in a nice way. If your ex came to you and said, are you a bad kisser? And they were, would you tell them they were a bad kisser?
See, here's the thing that's hard for me is I feel like bad kissing is a little bit like bad chocolate or something. Like, yeah, it's bad, but like I'll take it. Like, I don't know.
I don't think you've had someone who's first off, Danielle gets really uncomfortable when people make out, which I didn't realize. I am in my wheelhouse with that. Like, people sharing feelings and hugging, I'm like, get away from me. But like the random makeout, I'm like, let's like this.
It's just like, oh, they don't even know each other. I hope this is consensual. But like, I get so nervous about it. I don't know. I'm like embarrassed. I don't know. It makes me sweat.
All I could think of with Connor and that girl was, we're in a pandemic. Like, are you just kissing randos? Like, we're in a pandemic. Ew.
Yeah.
Like, has she been vaccinated? Has she isolated? Like,
right.
Ew.
So
then I'm sorry. I had so many questions. I was like,
no, yeah.
I asked my husband, I was like, how do you date now? You go out to a bar and then like, if you want to like maybe get to know someone better or go on a date or bring them home, are you like, have you been vaccinated? Like, who have you been around? Right? Like, how do you date? It's just gross.
So they bring on this random girl from the audience and she has this like very canned, like, I don't think you could be a bad kisser, Connor. And then they come up and they make out on stage and we're supposed to believe that it was like totally spontaneous. I disagree. I will die on this hill. And also,
yeah, their lawyer probably made her, like, thinking about what Melissa said, like, the Bachelorette has a lawyer that was like, you can stage this, but like, we gotta test her for COVID first.
Yeah.
They do a rapid test.
Yes. I don't believe any of that. And Tasha and Caitlin were doing their best. They are not great actresses. And so you could tell that this was like prompted by like a teleprompter. And they're like, oh my, we should go to break now. Yeah. Danielle, you have extra credit.
Oh.
Ish. I'll make it really
It's
fast
easy.
because I
Okay.
feel like we have been smarty pants McGee's on this episode. So I was just like, I found this study called an exploratory study of reality appeal, uses and gratifications of reality TV shows. And really like what it was all about is, why do people watch reality TV shows, and does their belief in how real it is change, right? The reason that they watch. And sort of what they found is not that surprising, but if you watch, okay, so some reasons that people might watch reality TV: pastime, entertainment, maybe to not feel isolated, or to connect with others, to kind of be a snoop and see what's going on in other people's lives, right? And basically what they found is that people that watch it for entertainment, first and foremost, entertainment and relaxation, but then have secondary reasons like around social needs being met, that they're likely to see it as somewhat real, right? They understand that it's edited and constructed, but they probably also like are willing to suspend disbelief and like believe that it has some realness to it, right? People that watch it that are like maybe dealing with like low mobility, so they're stuck at their house, stuck in their home, or dealing with isolation, are more likely to believe that it's just real. And then people that only watch it for entertainment and maybe they're just passing time are more likely to not believe that it's real at all. So I would be curious to know how real you all think it is, because I think that it is definitely scripted, that what we see is only part of the story, but I also don't think that it's not real. Like, I think that there are emotions that are real. I think that there are aspects of it that are not necessarily contrived, but that what we see of it is still highly manicured. I don't know.
I would agree with that assessment. That's where I fall.
I think it's fascinating to see how people fall back on the scripts from real life and apply them to something that's not kind of a real world. So like the breakups, their breakups still follow like the real world scripts. It's not you, it's me. I don't see a relationship together, when you could easily be like, listen, we're on a TV show. I've had 4 hours with you. I will not be getting an engagement with you. But instead they fall back and they're like, I just can't see us building a life together. And if anyone after 4 hours of dating you were like, asked you to marry him, you'd be like, you're crazy. No, I'm not doing that. So I think that's the interesting part, is there's this weird like, and I even think they understand it's not real life, but they still like fall back. They make sense of it with these real life things. And so in that way, I think it's real.
Yeah. Well, so like take the Connor makeout situation, right? Like I watched that. I think I get the sense that this is like totally a plot, like a script, right? But at the same time, I suspend disbelief and go, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable. Two strangers are making out with each other, you know?
And they were like making out. Like it wasn't like just a kiss. They were making out, which just felt really weird. But I mean, the kiss was real though, right? Like, so I think that's the idea, that like it probably still felt like a real kiss. I don't think they rehearsed it ahead of time. I mean, I mean, she was mic'd, right? Like she was mic'd in the audience, like ready to go. Like it was clearly scripted and planned. But the kiss, I think, was a real moment.
23-year-old Bill. Yeah, 23-year-old Bill did not need much prompting to make out with someone. So I don't know how old Connor is. Yeah, but yeah.
Can I just say, so Bill has you have some questions about if
Oh, I thought,
Connor's on the show to like get his music career going, right?
yes.
Can I just say, I think that if that was his real intention, yes, he chose to sing again, but like, is that really what you would choose to sing? Like, is that like,
Are you trying to make me like Connor again? Listen, it's not happening,
no,
Danielle. I'm
I'm
out.
just trying to like disprove your theory. No.
He's a math teacher, right? I bet he's like singing math songs like in a math class. Like, I
You
don't
guys,
know.
you all have been hoodwinked. I am not a fan of his. He sings his little song. It's cute. No. He's from Nashville too, right? Which is like the capital of I want to be a professional singer. Like that guy is moonlighting as a math teacher and like going to crappy bars and playing music.
So this is a little bit random, but so I joined this like Aldi fan Facebook group. And it's amazing. It's like all these people like telling these like sweet stories of random acts of kindness that they do in the Aldi store. And like there's like a member of that group who has a cat named Kitty Chesney. And all I could think of was like anyone that names a cat Kitty Chesney is also watching The Bachelor. I don't know. So like that was a random segue, but
And the voice.
a sequitur there, but
Okay. Well, we need to move along. Okay, here we go. So Andrew and Michael, they're in the hot seat. Any thoughts about them? Andrew has some problematic tweets, I found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, I love
I missed
him.
it.
They were
Tweets.
kind of racist and insulting somebody. So I just learned about him this morning when I was kind of doing some research.
Mhm.
So
Did you all read? There is also like some controversy about Katie forgetting names of countries in Africa. So she was on a podcast with Nick Vale. He like kind of put her like asked her, you know, hey, what name 5 countries in Africa, and she like blanked. And
Nick
then
would do that. He's a dick.
Well, so then she apologized, right? She put out this apology that wasn't really I mean, like she was just defending herself. She's like, y'all, I blanked. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
And people have been really critical of her, but I'm also just like, as somebody who has terrible memory like that, especially if I'm under stress or if I haven't slept, like my recall functions are so bad. I just like sort of sympathized with her. So I've been kind of like trying to like work through that because I kind of just don't understand. I kind of just don't understand. And so I'm trying to figure out what it says about me that I don't understand, I guess right now. But I thought that was an interesting thing that's happened like kind of around the show too.
I feel like there's nuance to that because one is forgetting, and it wasn't like she said something blatantly racist. And I realize that both may be an issue, but I feel like there should be some space to decide what is like an active issue and what is a learning experience. But, you know, there's times I get asked stuff and it's stuff that I'm an expert in and I just blank. Like, and I doubt she's an expert in African geography. Right. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look up these tweets with Andrew.
Yeah. It's like on Carmen Sandiego when they, at the end, if you watched it as a kid and they would make you put the things in the different countries. And it's like, I bet those kids knew their geography well, but when you got sirens going off and you're trying to catch Carmen, you blank. Happens to the best of us. So Katie makes an entrance. She looks amazing in her green dress. That's what I thought. You wanted to, is that what you wanted to?
She looked awesome. It was bright. She pulled it off.
Everyone loves Katie. Katie loves everyone. I feel like that was kind of the vibe on the season. She calls Aaron Thomas, which was amazing. Like, I just felt like that was the one comeuppance Aaron got. And then
like that was not scripted.
No. And then Thomas comes on and he still doesn't really seem to get what the problem is. Do you think he has a career in being a politician? Because I feel like people have like insulted him and he just like has that like kind of blanks. He's like, thank you so much for the feedback.
I think this is what I think. I think that Thomas is not as bad of a guy as he's been made out to be, but I think he's not the brightest. I think he's a little dim.
I think he's a real estate agent, right? Like, I think you're like dealing with lots of people, like sales.
Yeah, I feel like he's a real estate agent. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, he's just a little smarmy, but like, I think he's a really good looking guy, and he's probably his life's been. I mean, it's probably just people are real. Life has been easy for him. You know, they're like, oh, I don't know.
I feel like he's a real estate agent where you're like, we can't go over $300,000, and then he takes you to the $360,000 house. And you're like, we can. And he's like, oh yeah, I just want to show it to you. Thanks. Yeah, no, we can leave whenever you want. Let me show you the closet. Master bedroom. God damn it. I don't even want to look at what I don't have. I'm going to talk myself into it, and you know it, and you're going to get an extra $1,000 on your commission, jerk. Okay. I'm going off on diatribes. Do you want to see him in paradise? I sure do.
Thomas?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, they're not falling in love on paradise. Okay, Shakespeare.
I just don't think he has that interesting of a personality.
That's the best thing in paradise.
I read a spoiler. I'll share it when we're done.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
If you want, but not now.
I feel like Danielle and I look at paradise very differently. Like, she wants the best chance for everyone to fall in love, and I want the best chance for everyone to hook up and then be really mad at each other. Like,
I actually feel like I agree with the first part of that statement. I want them to hook up.
Oh, okay.
But I just don't want them to be mad at each other afterwards.
But then you want them to fall in love after the hookup.
No, I just want an amicable future.
My favorite part of paradise is just seeing the formation of relationships, like even if it's friendships. Like, I actually sometimes just like seeing, I don't know, like just how people are a good friend. That sounds so lame. That sounds so nerdy, doesn't it? But I like seeing them like laugh, like the bloopers, right? Like, I like watching people goofing off and being funny, and it's not a love story. It's a different kind of love story, I guess.
I like that the Bachelor in Paradise gets itself. Like, it has the funny beginning where like it's like winking towards its, like it's a lovely wink. I don't know.
I totally agree with you. It is self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
So favorite bloopers?
I think whenever they were talking in their English accents, like for everything was funny.
I thought Michael, when they were doing the roast and they were talking about like how long he could last, his like witty repartee was amazing.
That was the best.
What I love about the bloopers is kind of what you were saying, Melissa, about what you like in Bachelor in Paradise, is that you feel like you get to see their senses of humor and their sort of like how they respond to each other more. And like, for example, Michael plays this like, I'm a sweet dad with this like sad story, but you see that he has this like really funny sense of humor, and he's a bit bawdy, and you don't get that like you don't get some of that body humor.
Like in the dune buggy when he
yes.
when he was like, I was conceived in a dune buggy.
Yes.
Tell me when you want me to fire up this love machine. Like, yeah, he's just very, that's my type of humor.
Yeah.
All right, lessons learned. What did we learn from this? I learned that though Danielle and I are very close friends, we want very much different things from our reality television. I think we've finally come to the conclusion.
That's why we make such great co-hosts.
Yeah.
I think I learned that the episode can be blah, but that our conversation about the episode can still be really interesting.
Eyebrow.
You know what I think? I think, it goes, the old Friends episode where they were on a break, but they had different definitions of break. I think we're just rehashing that with love and love. Like, it always just comes back to how we define our terms, and that when we define them differently and we communicate about them differently, it causes conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm going to have to take a nap after this. My brain has worked so hard. All right, Dr. Dobosh, you get the last word. What wisdom can you impart on us?
Speak up in a group. Share your minority opinion. You can shift the whole discussion. Yeah.
Usually it's something like really like cheeky. I like that. Man,
Well, I was also thinking like you should just always wear a skateboard or a helmet when you're skateboarding.
That's
That like isn't that's like mom advice.
I like it.
I don't know.
All right, everyone. Wear your helmets while you skateboard and speak up in groups. That's our takeaway from this week.
Changing the world one episode at a time.
One episode at a time. And the new provost, if you're listening, we have earmarked funds for scooters for advising. The last provost promised it, Dr. Walpart. So just budget that. We're good to go. And we're not affiliated with the university in any way. Have a good weekend. You've been listening to Batchademia with your hosts, Doctors Daniel Dick McGew and Bill Henniger. All opinions expressed on this show are solely the opinion of the person who spoke them. If you like our podcast, please consider following us, leaving us a 5-star rating, and a positive review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also, please share with your friends, family, and other ardent Bachelor content lovers. If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at batchademia@gmail.com or on the Twitter with the handle @batchademia. Thanks for listening.